The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hello and welcome to this very special edition of The Parenting Show. I'm Jennifer Anderson. With me and joining by Skype is my friend, co-host, and parenting expert, Alyson Schafer. Hello, Alyson.
Hey, Jen.
It is so strange not to be on the couch with you today, but of course we aren't for very obvious reasons.
Right.
Yes.
How great that we have technology in these times where we need to do both our social distancing and yet probably the most important time in history to do some really important connecting. So thank you for organizing this there at Rogers.
Absolutely. So we are in the studio where we normally tape the show. We are at the studio in Georgina, in the Rogers TV studio, and want to let everybody know we are also practicing all the safety precautions that we need to be doing. We are social distancing. There's very few people here. In fact, the only person in the studio with me right now is my husband. So we are really practicing what everybody is telling us to, and to take this very, very, very seriously. And of course, Alyson is joining us from her home. And so we have the opportunity to be able to do this. We are taping the show on March 23rd. And I want to let everybody know that date. It's important to let you know because, of course, things are changing by the hour, by the minute sometimes. Every time there's a new update, it changes. We're also, because we air in Ontario, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, and hello to everybody who is watching us at home and online. And of course, anybody can access the show anywhere, but that's where the show is running on folks who have it on their TV in their living room. But we want to let people know that some of the information we're providing may be a little bit different. And it might be different because it's a different day, but it also might be different because it's in a different province or a different area. But it was really important to be able to bring Alyson in. She, and I'm tooting your horn, she is the savior to a lot of parents, myself included. When you feel like you're alone, when you feel like you're stressed, and you're struggling. Alyson has always been the voice of reason on this couch with me, and she's the voice of reason today by Skype to let people know that you're not alone and how to maybe get through this a little bit easier. Right?
Absolutely. You know, and just so people know, I'm the first person to say that this is a time of social crisis and family crisis, and we're being called upon to act in ways that really challenge us, and it's from that perspective that I want to be helpful. That I am not a doctor, I am not an epidemiologist. Those are not my area of expertise. But we certainly have a lot of resources for parents who are looking for solid, vetted, credible information, because a lot of misinformation, as we know, gets circulated. And so we'll be sharing some great places to look for further information. But, I'm an expert in family relationships, certainly an expert in stress, and these are stressful times, expert in emotions. So we'll try to be as helpful as possible to people trying to deal with uncertain times, times of great uncertainty and fear, and knowing that it's unprecedented. We've never been here, and we've never had to face anything exactly like this before. And I think it really helps people to feel at least they're not going through it alone, and anything that we can do to make that an easier journey for them, we're going to do our part to do that.
Well, and I think that's a good point, because how do you explain to kids, and we can talk about different ages because that will make a difference, but how do you explain to kids about the coronavirus when we as adults don't know everything? We can't see the future. So how do we explain to our kids what's happening without creating fear?
Mm-hmm. So to your point, there's absolutely age-specific developmental considerations to be made here. So with our youngest of kids, the youngest of kids, they really don't probably know much, except for that there's been a bit of a change in the pattern, in that maybe they're not going to the park anymore, or maybe the nanny's not coming anymore, or why are mom and dad working from home. But in terms of their day in and day out, we get up, we have a nap. Kids are still very, I don't want to say gullible, that's the wrong thing, but they're trying to make sense of their world, and they really just look to their parent authority for their understanding. So it's important for us that we give them facts, but only the facts that they require to make sense of the situation, to give clarifying questions. And we don't need to add more to it than that. You have to remember, a 5-year-old, when they say, who filled my stockings, and you say Santa came down the chimney in a red suit, and they're like, okay, that works for me. So we just need to be matter of fact, minimal amount of information, and we can just say that, right now out in the world, there's people getting sick, and the best way for people to not spread germs, because kids at 5 know, you sneeze in your hand, you show them how to wash, you're going to be talking about those things. We can just say that there's germs that are being spread, and the best way for us to get rid of the germs and stop the spread is for everybody to stay home, and that's why we're not touching things, and that's why we're not seeing other people, and that's why everybody's working from home. And that's fine for a 5-year-old. By the time we start getting into elementary age kids and kids that are having exposure because they're on their iPads, they're catching things on the news, now we would need to ask them, what have you heard? And I say that because we don't know what they've picked up. And we don't know, even if you were sitting beside them watching the same news broadcast, they're still going to put things together in their mind that could be a very inaccurate understanding of what's going on. And so, they might have seen the clip for the movie called Pandemic, and then, go right to some thought about what that's going to look like. So we have an opportunity then to correct any misunderstanding, invite them to ask clarifying questions, and again, just share back what they need to know, and that it is all right to be accurate in saying, like, yeah, actually, we can say, yes, I'm worried, but I'm only worried in so much as I know that I'm going to do what we are being told to do. And there's where we want to start focusing with our older kids, more on what the action part is. So what are we contributing to this? We are staying inside. We are washing our hands. We are, not contacting our friends. All those things that we're doing, we're listening to the authorities. We're trusting those people. They've got better skills and training in this than we ever had in any time in history. Look at how we've got evidence that they've already shut down that first wave in Wuhan, and there's been no new cases. So sharing that information that says that, well, it is scary, and yes, we are worried. We are listening and doing what we're supposed to do, and people are on top of this. Kind of there's the safety piece. And our older kids, depending on how attuned they are to the whole global situation, they might have a bigger sense of just how much of an impact this could have and how long. And we can just invite them into the conversation. They're old enough, they are young adults, and they want to be engaged. So keep open lines of communication together. What are you hearing? And I would say process that as a young adult. They're very much wiser than we think.
Well, and especially, for me, having 2 14-year-olds sharing my space right now, we've seen this shift over the last week of desperately wanting to see their friends. Why can't we just get together with a couple of friends, to now not even asking anymore? And some of that is just, the seriousness, being old enough to really understand and watch the news. But we're trying to create this balance of not living in fear, but being proactive. So it's really a balancing game in my household, and I think for a lot of families. Absolutely.
And I think whether it's with children or adults, it's very hard to be compelling to people to say, this is really serious. There's been 3 cases, everybody stay home. And people are like, there's only 3 cases, because they don't have an understanding of disease control and why that's so important. So in a sense, we've all kind of been in lag time with this, and we're all as a society catching on to, the gravity of the situation. And to your point, why is it saying, like, yes, actually, it makes sense to not see my friends and to say no to play dates and all those other things. But it's taken us a while to catch up mentally with the reality of that. And so teens were part of they've got that invincible, it's not going to happen to me. If I get it, I'll get over it. I'm young, my lungs are fine. And I don't think they've had that piece of understanding that this is truly what we're talking about. It's like social interest. We're not worried about any one person's health. We're worried about societal functioning and stress loads to get the proper help to people in the healthcare system. So, yeah, it's not a conversation about how are your lungs. It's a conversation about everybody on this planet needs to make a concerted effort. Yeah, so it's changed how we explain things.
So a lot of folks are glued to the TV right now. They're glued to that information. And of course, and rightfully so. But as you are doing that, you also have little ears who are listening. So that's another issue that maybe parents are facing, that fear comes from not really understanding what they're hearing.
And we know now, even as young as 12 months and under, that when they show scenes of war on television, those children 12 months and under still see what are graphically scary images. And seeing people in hazmat gear, seeing streets empty and being sprayed, those are actually can be traumatic images for kids. So yes, get yourself informed, but can you do it on a handheld device, not the family living room TV where everybody's walking around? And can you limit it so that you're checking in periodically throughout the day, but not becoming that person who's locked on the couch hearing every newscast? I mean, just for your own self-care, just for your own balance of life, that yes, we have to take this seriously, but if you want to scare yourself, if you want to stay in a mind space of fret, staying in the news feed is going to do it. So can you set some limits and boundaries? I'm going to check at 9, 12, 3, 6, and whatever, and do your little check-in, get your updates, but to watch this, the 24/7 reporting on this will keep you in a heightened state of stress.
Got it. That's a great segue because you mentioned the word self-care. We were joking before we went to tape, and it was about the fact that I hadn't actually gotten out of my pajamas in 6 days because I'm working from home. And truth be told, you're wearing your pajama pants. We just can't see them, right?
Well, hold on. Wait. So funny you should say that, because I was wearing pajama pants and then the top didn't kind of sit properly on them, and it was going to make the top ruffle. So I thought, oh, come on, make the effort, go put your jeans on. So yeah, you caught me kind of.
Okay, but for a lot of people, that's, now that they're working from home, they're self-isolating, we're going from our daytime pajamas to our nighttime pajamas. But the idea of, getting up, getting dressed, being active, all of those play a big part in maintaining our sanity, lowering our anxiety, and helping the kids as well.
Absolutely. And I would say in the first early days when this was all kind of coming down, we have to remember it started during March break here in Ontario, in our public school system, a little different for different provinces and private versus public. So it was sort of like holiday for a lot of people anyway, and it kind of overlapped. And so I think we were okay with sort of saying, you know what, it's just for a little bit, exception to the rule. And we were treating it more like, it's a sprint, do whatever. What does it matter if it's just for a couple of days? But as time has progressed and we're realizing this is more like a marathon, we need to start thinking about what our day in and day out life is going to look like. And are we able to function this way for the long term? And now we're starting to see, maybe I do need to start making some plans for my self-care. And there isn't one protocol that I would say, here's the winning formula that every single family should apply, and therefore you will be better at ease in this situation. What I would say, if I was going to give a universal, I would start by saying, be kind to yourself, and be kind to others. Nobody's been in this situation before, and we weren't prepared for the situation. So we're all making do the best we can. And remind ourselves, this was the best I could do today. This, I'm trying. I'm working out a system that works for us. I'm having to make different changes and iterations until I find the one that works. So maybe one of the ones that works is, for me, it feels much better when I get up and I actually have that shower and get my day clothes on. I feel more like I'm in business mode. For somebody else, it might be, you know what, the only way I can do this is if my partner takes the kids one day and I work, and then we switch and they take the kids the next day. It could be that's too much time in between, one in the morning, one in the, I don't know what your family formula for the juggling act is, but I would say go about it as a problem that needs a solution, and you're going to keep experimenting with different things. And, just to know that it's not going to look perfect. It's going to look a little bit more chaotic because we're working to create a new rule or a new schedule. But in there, I would say we find that when we have some form of schedule for the day, that in times of external chaos, the feeling of predictability and control helps us feel more solid and secure, and it certainly helps our children feel more solid and secure. So writing out some kind of a rough schedule for just generally what a day would look like, and sitting down with your family and saying, here's the problem that we need to figure out together. We need to figure out how to get in 3 meals, mommy's work, daddy's work, your free time, and list a bunch of things, and then just map it out in sort of some big chunks. In the morning, mom and dad are going to work. What will you kids do for your free play time? Or, everyone's got to do a little bit of schoolwork now that school's back in. What half hour would you like to dedicate to reading? Just big, I don't like, not every minute, like a little military schedule, but I think when everybody sees, okay, you know what? We can do this. It's not just wake up and have a day going, what's next, which is creates more anxiety for people. So work out that rough schedule and make sure that you put time in. How will you decompress? How will you recover from the stress that we're all having? And again, no one perfect formula. Some people like a bubble bath. It may be the only time you're alone in a room in your house, so socially isolating without a kid pulling on your pant leg. Other people, it's escaping into a great piece of fiction, reading poetry. I like reading the Stoic philosophers. Exercise is incredibly good for everybody. And if I get out and run, that's as of March 23rd still allowable. I wear rubber gloves to get in and out of the doorknob of my place here. But anything you can do to get your heart rate up, and that might be just running up and down a flight of stairs in your house for 10 minutes. That might be jumping on a skipping rope, doing burpees. But we discharge energy when we get our heart rate up. And of course, I'm a big fan of mindfulness meditation, and there's so many apps. If you have not practiced or looked into meditation, given that we are in high chaos times, learning to find equanimity and not have our emotions run wild in both fear or anger or short-temperedness when someone's fighting at the grocery store over toilet paper. You practice mindfulness so that you can take it out into the world. And so download an app. I love 10% Happier. I love Sam Harris's Waking Up. There's great ones for kids like kidevolve.com. So I would definitely look into that as well.
Perfect. Want to ask you a question. Normally on the show, we reach out and ask viewers to ask questions. So I have some that have been asked. I also want to let viewers know that you are continually going on Facebook and you are doing updates and live conferences just so you can speak to viewers and speak to your clients and that type of thing. So that's all available on your website, correct? All that information about when you are...
Yeah, my website, and certainly I am doing online counseling. You can do a half-hour session or an hour session with me and ask the hashtag #AskAlyson. You can reach out to me with a question through any of my social channels, and I'll give people advance notice of when I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live. So, if you want to keep getting parenting information, I'm going to be online a lot over this next bit of time.
Perfect. So I have a couple of questions here in the studio that have been asked. The first, the school is going to start asking us to help kids resume some of their classroom assignments at home. My son has learning issues and I don't want him to fall behind, but I'm also not looking forward to this daily battle with him. Any tips you can give to parents who are in this situation?
Yeah. So again, being time sensitive here, as of March 23rd, I do not believe that there has been a organized announcement. I think people are starting, individual teachers, maybe some schools, but we haven't really got a full solution to what they're expecting kids to do. And you and I have had this conversation before, separate from the pandemic. Even how much homework a teacher gives is very individual and not really based on the curriculum. We've got school boards that are going to have to figure out how to make up for kids who have not been having classroom instruction, and that's at the high school level all the way through. And how are we going to grade them? How are we going to move them on to the next grade next year? And we have not heard anything about how that is going to happen, but every school and every school board is going to know that there has been this gap time. And, I do not believe that the onus is on those parents who were better at sitting down with their kids, that those kids are going to get ahead. I don't want parents to sit in fear. The last thing we need to add to a family stress right now is our kids' report card. That's not where our focus is. I would say that a better focus would be that if we recognize part of self-care and how to help kids grow and learn and be a learner is to appeal to their brain. Like their brain, the human brain is designed to either both be social and to learn. And so I believe kids are learning all the time, that you can turn anything into a teachable moment. So your kid starts asking you, I don't know, about germs and how germs are spread, and the next thing you know, you're Googling stuff that is actually teaching them something educational. Or how come the sky is blue? Well, let's start finding out about water molecules and blah, blah. Are you making muffins? And let's find out how come baking soda actually makes things puffy. There's so many ways that we can just help a kid learn where they are. In reading, it's interesting with reading, because when you get reading it as homework, kids hate it. But when you actually just enjoy a book together without any pressure of it being evaluated, kids love story time. So right. I would say try to go back to if you've got a kid who's compliant and they want to sit down with the worksheets and they're happy because they're so bored they wouldn't mind doing some worksheets, fantastic. But if you're going to create more family fighting and erode relationship bonds in your family over trying to get a kid to do homework, and you've got kids, we're not trained as teachers, I would say choose your battles. We don't need that battle right now. Right. We need love and calm and peace. We will make up this time.
Well, and that leads me into the next question, because one of them is my kids fight all the time, and being home all day together is only making matters worse. I used to be able to send them off for a play date, but now they're forced to play together. So it's not all bonding time for families.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message to get out. So don't get me wrong. I think I do believe you should focus on the positive, and we're seeing so many posts about the positive of humanity. People going out and singing on their balconies, and I saw a girl whose birthday got canceled, and the neighbors figured out how to do a social distancing scavenger hunt. And I love these stories. There's lots of wonderful, beautiful things happening right now. But if you're the family who was already having trouble functioning, and you now are socially isolated together, if there were cracks in some of those relationships, this is going to be a stressor to an already stressed family, and things could really start to break apart without any ability to exit, to have space to get away from it. And that's going to be really hard for people. And it makes the difference between what everybody's projecting out in social media as being this blissful time versus the reality of the chaos of your own home is going to be painful for a lot of people. So, right. So again, I want to be online with these people. I don't want that to be a point of pain for you. So what do we do with kids that are fighting? Well, we've done a lot of episodes on this, Jen. And one of the things is that we have to appreciate that when kids are in relationship with each other, they are the caretakers of their own relationship. That it is not a parent's job to make their kids like one another. It would be a bonus if they actually enjoyed each other's company, but we can require that people treat each other with respect. And so when they're starting to kerfuffle, I call it, what we want to do is find a way of either a couple of things. One, respectfully saying, I'm not interested in observing that. I'm sorry you guys choose not to get along, but I don't want to watch it. And so given that we're isolated, you might just try doing a mini experiment where you just let your kids know, I will happily be here and play with you and engage with you so long as everyone's getting along. But if it turns into this little sibling dance that you guys do, I'm going to go find something else to do.
Right.
And so come when they're getting along, leave when they're starting to have conflict. And most kids know the opposite. Most kids know if I'm actually getting along with my brother and we're sitting here playing Lego, you're going to go do work. But if I start stealing his Lego and punching him, you're going to come have to deal with us.
Right.
So I want to teach them the opposite of that. And this might actually be a really good time because we have more time on our hands to actually do that, show them experientially. So that's the one thing. See if you can walk away and don't give them any mind when they're not getting along. The second thing that you can do is to actually step in a way but both separate them both. And I know you can't send one to a play date, but you could say you both need to go to your rooms for 5 minutes. If you can't play together, find individual play in your room. If 5 minutes doesn't work, try 10. You can up the time a little bit longer. And then the third thing that you can do is step in and help them solve the conflict, because a lot of these things are just things that need a better solution. So if it's like they're fighting over the console or the iPad, you can say, we need to make an arrangement over how long a turn is on an iPad. That just could be something that's just like help them solve it, kind of one and done. Mm-hmm. And so I think with those, stepping in with those interactions, that we will improve them getting along, because what we know is that almost all kids get into these kerfuffles in order to get parental attention.
Right.
And so I just really want to minimize the amount of tension and increasing the amount of effectiveness. So keep moving away from their storm.
You mentioned screen time, and we only have about just over a minute left, so it has to be a quick answer. But the idea of screen time, normally parents are limiting it. What are your thoughts on that during this time of self-isolation?
So I am very pro-technology. I think that we're all seeing how much, like you and I, would this count as our screen time, doing this wonderful community service of getting information out to parents. The question isn't, are our kids in front of a screen? The question is, what else are they doing when they're not on their screen, and is that balanced? Are they socializing with their family? Are they cleaning their room, doing their chores, getting their homework done? Are they doing life that they're supposed to do? And when they are online, what activities are they doing? So I think there is a difference between kids that are, maybe learning a new skill on YouTube, or being creative on GarageBand, or doing a social gaming, which keeps people very connected. I think there's going to be more time socializing and doing social connection online. I think that's fine. But if you find that your kid is doing, 7 hours of, watching silly videos of cats dancing on piano keys,
right?
That's entertainment, and that's fine. But I don't know, how many hours of silly leisure a day do we want?
Alyson, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me by Skype, and thanks to the Rogers TV Georgina studio, Jer and Johnny and Jim, who are all in the studio bringing this production to you today. For the folks at home, thank you so much for watching. Stay kind, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.